This is an M2 NPV motherboard. Before handling a motherboard, always take protection against ESD or electrostatic discharge. It is a very real thing that sometimes we cannot see or hear. It is the build-up of electrons on your skin and claws, and if discharged through some electronic components, destroy them. You can get more information at www.candoit.co.uk. To prevent this, you should first remove any hand jewellery such as watches and rings before any servicing, and attach an anti-static wrist strap. This strap will help you to discharge any electrostatic charge that builds up on you through to an earth point. Once again, if you do not have one of these, then check out my other items on eBay. This is a must for anyone undertaking any servicing on static sensitive components. Wear the strap on your left wrist if you're right-handed and vice versa. The crocodile clip should be attached to some earth point. Here we have used a fixing stud on one of the ports, but could be attached to an EBP or earth bonding point or the chassis of the computer. Protect the underside of the motherboard using an anti-static sheet or bubble wrap. Motherboards vary from one manufacturer to another, so in many cases you will need a schematic diagram. This acts like a street map of the motherboard and how to identify some of the major parts that we shall be dealing with. Don't worry too much about the abbreviations. It is preferable to identify a USB port than to remember it is an acronym of Universal Serial Bus. This is the CPU socket, sometimes known as the ZIF socket or Zero Insertion socket. You should be aware that the shape and sizes of these do vary with some CPUs. So if you're fitting a particular type of CPU, you should first make sure that it is compatible with the motherboard you are using. At the side of the socket you will find an arm. By unlocking it you can lift it. This will release the socket and so a CPU can be inserted. Once this has been done, the arm can be pushed back, so locking the CPU in position. Here we find 2 yellow and 2 black slots. This is where the memory will be inserted. Once again, the type of memory that will be fitted depends on your choice of the motherboard. This is the motherboard's power socket and can be a 20 or 24 pin. Once again, this depends on the motherboard. Just below this is the floppy disk drive controller. We have a primary and secondary ID ports. This motherboard supports 4 SATA devices. These row of pins are used for the front panel LEDs and buttons. 2 serial ports and 2 USB ports. This is the audio connector and 2 PCI slots. A PCIe x 16 slot, a PCIe slot. This is the CMOS battery. On the rear of the motherboard you will find a mouse and keyboard PS2 sockets, a high definition video socket, a parallel port for printers, a standard VGA socket, a Firewire socket followed by 4 more USB ports. This is a network adapter, and finally the audio connectors. This motherboard is supplied with fixing screws, a TV output adapter, a SATA signal cable, 1 floppy disk drive cable, an IDE cable and a blanking plate for the case. If this is your first tour around the motherboard, it can, with all this terminology, be a little confusing, but you will soon find in time that identifying these ports will become second nature. Next is the CPU and heatsink and fan.